Thank you. So I have posted the updated year-to-date revenue expenditure reports on board docs. There have not been any significant changes since last month, but as you know, this has been a particularly tight budget year, partially because we're operating under a fall budget, but we've also experienced cost pressures in special education, and health insurance in particular. So we are projecting to end the fiscal year slightly over budget. So as a result, we are limiting our spending to essential items only. Discontinuing discretionary expenditures. We will continue to monitor both revenues and expenditures as we continue through the fiscal year. But there are 5 months remaining, so that is things can change. But based on current projections, we do anticipate that we'll need to make a withdrawal from the Special Education Expendable Trust to cover that year-end balance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from that?
I just, I'll Brian, if I could, Michelle, for the next meeting, is there any way that we can have a full cost of the, whichever program in the elementary school, the full cost, the staffing, my opinion, I think that program had pulled other people away from their regular, one-on-ones or whatever it needed to be, and it really had a tough time filling positions for that. So we could get kind of a full update, how does the staffing look, what is the full cost to be, and just kind of talk about that a little bit, and weigh the pros and cons.
Yes, we can certainly pull together those numbers for you.
Moving on, update on the school goals.
I don't know if the principal wants to start, but that would be brief next, like Tim is volunteering.
Sure, I'll go ahead. Normally our goals are at the end of our board report, my board report for elementary, at least today just printed our copies. And so our goals are all shaped around the portrait of a learner. And so we have an academic goal, a mindset goal, physical and mental wellness, community engagement, and essential life skills. Those are our 5 pillars. And so as we review these goals with our grade level teams, teacher teams during their grade level meetings, we also discuss these with our team leaders. We're feeling pretty good about where we're at this point in the year, midway point, in terms of meeting our goals. However, we did indicate that our academic goal and our mindset goal, which are the 2 first ones listed, I had some indicators that I printed. Basically, a green is good, so we're definitely going to meet it. A yellow is a question, we're not quite sure, but we're trending in the right direction. And this is absolutely not, we're definitely not going to meet the goal. So I can crumple this one up, so we're feeling pretty good. At this point in the year, we're either going to meet all of our goals, but the 2 that we're looking closely at with academics and mindset. So our academic goal, one of the reasons why I indicated that it's not 100% that we're definitely going to meet that is really because we have to wait until the end of the year, because we'll be comparing data at the end of the year to last year's data to see if our students made that expected growth of at least 1 year. We're fairly confident with the data we have right now that we're moving in that direction and that is happening, but I don't want to promise something and then have that not come through, but we do feel good about where we are with our mid-year assessments, and happy to provide more data around that in our next meeting if folks are interested. And then our mindsets goal, that goal requires students on our report card. We have the 5 CARES competencies, and that's cooperation, assertion, responsibility, empathy, and self-control. The goal that we've set for ourselves is that 100% of students will be proficient. So that would be a 3 or a 4 on the report card in at least 4 out of 5 of those competencies. That took a quick review of some report cards to say, we're we pulled our staff together to discuss some and brainstorm some ideas on how we can do more school-wide things related to peers, so the burden's not always on the teachers teaching those lessons every single day, and just discuss using that language more often in the classroom. But one of the things we shared with you in our last meeting was the kindness box and how we're trying to shout students out for doing, students shout each other out too for being caught doing those things. And we're open to all sorts of ideas for how we can continue to promote those skills, since it's something that we do report out on. We want to make sure that we're making a concentrated effort to teach those skills. So more on that, but the last three goals: physical and mental wellness, community engagement, and essential life skills. We're feeling right now that we're trending towards definitely meeting those three goals. But it takes a village. We're very committed group of staff and family and volunteers to make these things happen. So we're moving in the right direction, and we feel pretty good about where we are midway through the year.
We do, we still have 5 minutes. Proposed 20, Michelle? I can't see anybody.
It's behind the podium.
Oh.
I know.
No, I can't see still.
Hi, Kelly Huber, 96 Farm Lane, Seabrook, New Hampshire. I just wanted to know if you guys were going to be discussing the report that was online yesterday in regards to the violations.
Yeah.
In regards to the violations,
We did.
The corrective action?
Right before you came in.
Okay,
that
so-
Mary Toomey, read her report about the, special education IEP infraction.
oh, the one
That's
that
what you're
was
talking about?
in the special ed?
Yeah, you're talking about that one?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, she just missed it.
Was that that portion that was posted online,
It's in board docs, my report.
Right.
It's about an update
Yep,
to the due diligence review that's ongoing at the moment.
yep,
And we talked about the rationale behind why our progress report that speaks to the specifics of students that data was moved to the executive content because of some low incidents that could identify staff and students. And it was just our progress report.
so did you provide it to the public on what your letter was to the state? The attachment that was
It's
originally
provided
on?
to the school board.
Okay, but it wasn't provided to the board, to the public?
It was not provided to the public
Why is that?
because of the low incidence nature of some of the student assignments and staff assignments could identify them. And so that's the reason why.
Okay, but that doesn't qualify for a non-public.
We
So a
just talked
non-public,
about this.
that's okay, but I wasn't here. But I know that for a
But
non-public,
I'm not sure I should even be responding to.
because I called the state and it doesn't qualify for a non-public because the students and the staff were redacted. There was no information in the report that you originally posted that would qualify for a non-public because you're speculating that people could make assumptions on who it is, but speculation doesn't qualify for non-public. And that information, I'm pretty sure you shared back in May on, I actually have it in my state over there. But it
So
left.
you had access to this?
Yeah. So if you look at the information that you posted in May about this, it was not, hold on, let me get the form. So this is it right here. This is what you provided to the board in May in regards to the letter that was online. The problem with that is that it said in your case that it was a, let me get this right because I don't want to give the wrong information. Okay, so it emphasizes that the LEA determinations are required annually, one way the state monitors implementation. It's true, but it minimizes the context of the review and that there was a complaint even occurred. It says nowhere in the LEA LED determination did explain the reference of the allegation. It never mentioned the paid violations. In this presentation, there was nothing stated in regards to note of the service delivery failures. There was, it didn't explain why Seabrook's compliance and results were weak, and that the admission was determined to be not accidental. And then it says the DOE knows that LEA determinations, public-facing comparative documents, complaint investigations.
Do you have a specific question?
No, but I'm just asking why it wasn't provided to the public, and why, when the original complaint came out from the state in May, the public didn't receive it. Instead, they received this documentation that does not, it undoes it contradicts the complaint findings. So basically, it was something that was provided to the board and the public that did not provide you guys with the fact that there was a complaint. And I just think that's not transparent.
Sorry, when you're finished.
No, that's okay. But it even says that so that this documentation doesn't indicate at all that there was a complaint or investigation launched, and that's kind of a concern.
So I think we're talking about two different pieces of
Yeah,
information,
that's
but I
what
should
I'm
be
going
a follow
to
up.
clarify to the chair, just to the board chair, that the LEA determinations are equal, have nothing to do with the due diligence review. That's completely separate, happens in, the determinations happen annually. I do a annual report to the board in every district annually about the determinations, completely separate from what we received in September, telling us that the due diligence review allegation was substantiated. So I'll leave that.
Right, but there was nothing submitted to the public, that there was an investigation done, and then the link the other day was provided, but then it was taken down as being non-public, but it's not. So if no one saw that link, nobody would know that out of 24 kids, 21 were not in compliance.
That information was provided to the board this fall.
It was not provided to the
We just
public.
talked.
To the public, it was not to the public.
It was provided to the board in a public meeting and discussed in a public meeting.
Right, but it did not go into detail, Meredith, on exactly what that came back, what that report said the other day.
Again, it's public comment, so I'm not debating, I was just correcting that there were two different ones.
Okay, it needs to be transparent, because we'll talk about the deliberative, but basically in the budget deliberative reviews, the reviews for the budget, there was nothing specified on the amount of money that we have to spend or have spent on the things that needed to be done, meaning services that needed to be made up, that in the letter to the state, it said that there would be extra costs that would be paid out by the school for overtime and anything that is not within the contract of employees. So you guys are basically paying all over again for these services to be made up, yet there's nothing in the budget review that's indicating that that money is needed. Thanks.
Can I just make a comment too? I wanted to say before you came, we had talked about this, and I went on record as saying that I do not believe that there was any non-public part of that, and I will go on record again saying it. Meredith mentioned that her and Tim were on with Allison from the State Board of Education. What was that? Christian Allison. Christian Allison.
Oh, yeah, she's,
Yeah, I didn't hear that, so, okay. I thought you said you were on the state, so I was gonna
Say anything.
okay. But I do wanna go on record and saying that I was concerned the way the things switched up, and I have not had the privilege yet to even look and see what was that. So we got it.
okay. Well, the link that was provided redacted everything, so it was no longer a privacy issue.
All right, we're going to close public comment at 6:33. We're moving on to the. Is that just for Tim? You have one too? Oh, okay, great.
So like Tim, I provided you with a paper copy. If you look it up for academic role, similar to him, we're gonna collect data and we won't have all of it. really good. We're really hopeful about the direction we're moving in. We're pretty excited about some of the growth and achievement that's been made by students. So we want to celebrate all the hard work that the teachers are doing. Having recently, we just closed the window. So we're looking at ELA math and grouping. They do have a science NEPA, but due to budgetary concerns, we haven't been able to purchase that. Maybe someday in the future it would be nice if we could have that as kind of like a practice test for students, so they kind of have an indication where it's only in 5th grade and 8th grade, so that's a good consideration. We use the SAS modules this year. Everybody worked with their ELA team, and students have practiced on, what are we looking at? What does argumentative writing look like? Teachers are analyzing all that information and using that to create their lessons. And we have continued with the implementation of Wisdom. We also want to know that there are, a pre-algebra class in 7th grade and an algebra class in 8th grade. And as always, our math interventionists, along with our classroom teachers, are spending real time looking at what are the foundational skills that our students are lacking, and what can we do during that block of time to help support them. If you look at the second part of that academic goal, it talks about students' voice and choice. I think that looks different from content to content. During a social studies class, we have the ability to present a project. You can do it orally, you can make a poster, you can do it with a team, you can do it digitally. Social studies teachers have an opportunity to have kids can either read something on a book, or they can read the book version of it. They can do an essay. Art teacher, you can draw it, you can sculpt it, you can do a video of it. So I think there's lots of opportunities within each course subject that kids get a choice in. How am I going to present what I learned in the modality that really fits me as a learner? Mindset, we had a level up class. We talked about problem solving, being self-aware. All students have the habits of learning from their report cards. They continue to be working on being a problem solver, being a curious learner, self-reflecting on what they're doing in class. Excuse me. Another opportunity to do that is during advisory. I do want to backtrack. Similar to Tim, we have the teacher leadership team. Matt helped create this. We had to synthesize it because we had a lot of information there. And also they got feedback from the teachers on what are we doing under each of the pillars that we're working on. Physical and mental wellness, based on the feedback we got from teachers, everybody looked at advisory differently in terms of, is this curriculum that we're using working for us? So we revamped it. Teachers presented to each other in December. They talked about, here's what I'd like to use, Doug Overton, for example, which teachers learned at the Nelms conference. And we looked at what kind of experience we want our students to have in advisory that's similar but maybe not the same. So we want them all to be able to speak freely, make a connection with the adult in their classroom. And then problem solve. How they problem solve, do they have family meetings? It's different grade level and grade level. They talk to them, they celebrate them, and then they talk to them about, hey, recess didn't go so well yesterday. What are we going to do about that? We like to celebrate students being kids, and our RAM rally is one way that we do that. And lastly, we had the Brown Center last month work with our student council. The way that you have kids connected to a school is when they have a voice. I had 2 girls meet with me today. They did a presentation. They want to start an after-school club. They had a 12-slide PowerPoint presentation. They were like, Mrs. Len, I'd like you to consider us. They talked about where it would be, who would run it, how it would happen, which teacher would help them. These are the kinds of things that help kids feel like they're part of creating the Seabrook community engagement, which is on the last box. Every grade level in some way, engaged with our community. All of this has not happened. Some of it has happened, some of it will happen. We have a connection with the fire department, we have a connection with the Lions Club, we have a connection with, the local really great Mexican restaurant. We have a connection with UNH, where kids have an opportunity to go out to the marsh and kayaks. future consumers. And they're also a piece of our community that I will say is extremely generous to us. It's not only monetarily, but it's giving their time and expertise. And the last one is life skills. I think they got a lot of life skills in some of their UA classes, in their facts class. They learn how to sew, they talk about menus, the library media, she's going to do some finance with them, how you run a household. And then our next step hopefully is we want to get into the college.
Awesome. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Sounds great to me.
Just, can I ask a question about all the answer? Probably not. On the level up, do we bill for those services with their actual counseling services if a certain insurance is used, or is that a regular class? Or is it a billable service? Just a regular class, so no billable? Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to the calendar, proposed 26-27 school calendar. We reviewed this the other night at the joint board, and it was approved by the joint board, and now it's being brought to us to make a motion to approve the 2026-27 calendar.
I'll make that motion.
All right, that was a motion by Lacey, seconded by Maria. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous? School counseling program plan. You requested it.
I requested 3 things, so if you want me to just go through and the school counseling program plan was on joint board. It's a pretty intensive report, and it's not connected here. I was hoping there was a little note so parents or community want to go see what exactly it is and what it entails. So for next meeting, if we could have that on with the report with it to discuss, and I'd like to table that until the next meeting for the discussion.
Did you have specific questions on
No,
that?
I want the public to know that this is what we're doing, so we can attach it and then talk about it at the next meeting. Tonight it would really be. No, I'm talking about Seabrook School agenda, because it's something we need to talk about it too. We don't do it just what the joint board wants us to say. It's not
It's on
on
board
our
doc.
agenda, so can we put it on the agenda for next month for discussion with the report so that we can at least say, hey, we got there. Here it is, questions, come talk to us. That's all about it. It's nothing to discuss with the board.
Okay. We'll move on to number of behavioral suspensions both in and out of school.
Yep, and that's another one we need to go if you want. I would like, the administration, and that kind of goes with that to some time as well, to, report to us how things are going. Kind of, I'm looking at their use of time. Because if our principal and our assistant principal, both middle and elementary, are spending all day long, into the hours, weekends, looking into situations, I think we need to know about that. So I think kind of, the use of their time is valuable, but it also should be key to academics, classroom teachers. And I feel like I need to know, because everybody should want to know.
I think they usually put it in their
Yeah, I think Colleen
report.
usually puts it in our monthly report.
Where is it today? Showing?
No, it's not on here today.
That's
Because
right.
because you asked for it as a separate agenda item, but it was
Yeah.
in a report last month.
So if you can have it on there, the report monthly, moving forward, and I would like to know roughly from them as a board member, or the community as well, the use of their time spent on behaviors, because behaviors, we've been talking about it for a while, whether it's on the bus,
hard to give you a minute-by-minute breakdown, and that's why it'll be day by day.
And that's,
I know you're asking for hours, though. You're
Yep.
asking on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly
Yep.
basis, on an annual basis, because it's hard
if
for
they come
them.
forward and
That would
say,
be like asking what we do every day.
Michelle, we are the school board.
I know what we are. I know what we are.
And I have a question, and I want to assure that our administration is not bogged down with behavior all day long where they cannot handle the other employees of the school. Is there something we can do as a school board to help with that? Or is it you're not having any problems at all? You're not seeing a whole lot of problems? You're not spending your days investigating, calling, in school, out of school, correct? If that's the case, then you know what's bringing in the report, everything's great, we're not seeing a big influx of any of this, and it's not taking up a lot of our time, or it is, and is there something the school board can do to work with them to help, you know, whatever it is? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure
I
they
haven't
would
seen it.
let us know if they do put it in the monthly.
So you're sure
report.
they'll let us know? It's not
Yes.
a report, but.
I think
Okay, we can move on.
We can certainly add that to a future agenda. I'm
Yeah.
trying to ask what you're looking for, because there are a lot of different ways to present that information. So I'm trying to get an understanding of
What would you
questions
usually
are.
do, and, you know, be able to help the board understand how much time is being used?
Well, again, I think principals can speak to their
Yeah.
experiences, and I would say.
In the reports,
Well, the reports are gonna vary depending on the nature of the incident. So that some reports alone aren't a measure. I think we can speak to anecdotally about time, but if you're looking for a breakdown of, you know, how many hours on a weekly basis, I think it would be difficult for them.
if you want to go back, Les Shepherd's days of being here, if you look at his reports to the school
I think we
board,
should-
every one of those reports were pretty, you know, defined, how many incidents did he have of this, and this, it didn't say kids. And, you know, it kind of gives you a good snapshot of how many hours are being spent dealing with behavioral issues.
So
And what
incidents
could we
as
do?
opposed to time. I mean, I would
Yeah,
say the
time.
biggest thing that not just the
Yeah.
board can do, that the community could do, would be to monitor their children's cell phone use outside of school, because that is the time, that is the issue that is the most time consuming for
Right.
administrators across the board.
Right, and how much time we're spending policing at-home things.
Correct.
When we can be doing in-school things, and that's kind of the concern up there. And I think for you, for them, for the administration, for the staff, but for us too, to know what can we do better to help. So if we could, I mean, take a look at Les's report, gives it all, you'll see kind of what I'm saying. Just trying to help it.
10 years ago is 10 years ago. It's a different age and different.
10
Time
years ago
frame.
has valuable
So we'll
information.
move on to policies, second read and adoption. I think she used that use of administrative time.
Yeah, we said it double.
Yeah, it was kind of together.
Yeah.
So I need a motion to approve the adoption and withdrawal as recommended for 14 policies as presented. All right, so we have a motion by Casey, I need a second. Second by Lacey, all in favor? Aye, unanimous. Personnel? None. All right. So future meetings, SAU 21 Operations Committee is Monday, March 9th. And then we have voting day is Tuesday, March 10th. That's at the rec center, 7 to 7. And then Seabrook School Board meeting will be March 17th, a Tuesday, for the next meeting. And then, do we have a non-public or no? There's no personnel. Okay, so we resume the,
So you're going to recess. the
Recess.
meeting. So you need a motion to recess. the
Okay.
meeting for deliberative session.
I'll make a motion to recess.
At 6:49 PM.
yes. Motion by Lacey, second by Casey. Or Maria, one of them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Maria? Yes.
Yeah, I.
Okay.
come up to speak so that everybody at home knows who's speaking. And please limit your comments and questions to around 5 minutes per person. And please stick to the question at hand. And amendments can be brought forth. I will read them and hand them off to council for review. And please hold your applauses. My name is Rio Tilton. I'm the school district moderator.
Matt Ferreira, Associate Superintendent of Finance and Operations.
Casaza, School District Council.
Meredith Nato, Superintendent.
Maria Brown, school board member.
Michelle Knowles, Chair.
Lisa Fowler, School Board Member.
Tim Dow, Principal, Seabrook Elementary.
Colleen Lennon, Principal of Seabrook Middle School.
To the inhabitants of the school district of the town of Seabrook and the county of Rockingham and the state of New Hampshire qualified to vote in school district affairs are hereby notified and warned that the 2 sessions of the annual school district meeting will be held as follows. Tonight, and then the second session of the annual meeting will be on Tuesday, March 10th, 2026 from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Seabrook Recreation Department. Article 1. The average cost per pupil for the preceding year as calculated in accordance with RSA 189.75 is $30,121.77. Seabrook ELA English Language Arts Proficiency is 44%, the state proficiency is 55%, Seabrook Math Proficiency is 34%, state proficiency is 42%, Seabrook Science Proficiency is 30%, state proficiency is 38%. Shall the school district raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth wherein totaling $19,207,158. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $19,040,759, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the school district or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote required. And there's a note on this article that says, warrant article number 1, the operating budget does not include appropriations in any other warrant articles. The school board and budget committee recommend this appropriation, majority vote required, and should this article be approved, it is estimated it will constitute a $4.3410 per thousand on the tax rate. And so to give a quick overview.
Thank you. Good evening. I would like to begin by thanking the school board and the budget committee for their thoughtful and collaborative review. They really did some detailed work on this proposed budget, and it's greatly appreciated. I also want to recognize Principals Colleen Lennon and Tim Dow, as well as their teams. They really put forth a tremendous effort in building this plan. So this budget was developed using a true zero-based budgeting approach, really starting from the ground up and carefully reviewing each account, staffing levels, and resources necessary in order to ensure that this budget aligns with our mission and our goals. Our process really relies on long-term planning. We look at enrollment projections, staffing analysis, and program reviews to determine what really is needed in order to meet our student needs. So this budget is more than just a set of numbers on the paper. It does reflect our priorities. It reflects our values, our shared commitment to provide the strongest possible educational experience for all of our students. When looking at the budget, our vision is truly centered on engaging all of our learners, and that's through developmentally appropriate research-based instruction. We do so in a safe and supportive environment, and we truly believe that every student deserves the opportunity to grow, and not only academically, but also socially and emotionally. And when we look at that mission, we do have a belief that It guides our daily practice and all of those budget decisions therein. So the FY27 budget does align with our strategic planning approach. That's our SAU 21 Portrait of a Learner strategic plan, as well as our Seabrook School District Improvement Plan. Those frameworks do focus on a number of areas. We look at developing strong academics, healthy mindsets, essential life skills, physical and mental wellness, as well as positive community engagement. Those investments support 5 priority areas, ensuring students develop these competencies and the necessary confidence when looking at how what is necessary for them to succeed both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So one metric that we look at is enrollment. Our enrollment projections are showing an estimate of 524 students for FY27. This does show a slight decline, but it is important that we look at those enrollment numbers and those trends, because those do inform our budget decision making. When we look at our class size, when we look at our staffing, when we look at various academic and behavioral support services that we do offer at the school. So when we look at those enrollment trends, it helps to understand how it shifts and to ensure that our classrooms are appropriately staffed and that all of our students do benefit from the continued individualized and personalized instruction and supportive learning environments that we offer here at Seabrook. So the cost of living adjustment for non-union staff is based on the Consumer Price Index for the Portsmouth region. That COLA is embedded in the budget for our administrators, our administrative assistants, our food service staff, our facilities team, as well as our technology members. CPI did rise 3.2% from July of 2024 to July of 2025. So that is the SAU-wide cost of living adjustment that is included in this budget and all of our SAU budgets. So our proposed FY27 operating budget totals $19,207,965. That is an increase of 4.75% over current year FY26. And this budget does reflect what is required to maintain high quality instruction, fulfill our mandated and legally obligated services, support staff and students, as well as operate a safe and well-maintained facility. I'll also note that the proposed budget is $167,206 higher than the default budget, and that difference represents the essential resources needed to deliver programs and supports our students depend on. When looking at the budget, we did see several key drivers contributing to the increase in the overall forecast. First, because the current FY26 budget failed at ballot, the district is starting the year underfunded by nearly $298,000. This is the 4th default budget since 2020, and I will note that that does continue to amplify increases as we work from a baseline that's already low. We also have contractual salary obligations for both our union and our non-union staff members. That includes COLAs and step increases. I'll note that those adjustments do help us to hire and to retain our high-quality staff members. Our health insurance costs increased due to employee plan changes. That's a typical annual pressure that we do face. Across the district, we continue to experience inflation. We're seeing that across the board, whether that's materials, books, contracted services, utilities, software, any labor, we're seeing large increases. We've seen some particularly significant cost escalation in both facilities and food service. And finally, special education costs have risen based on individual student needs. So when you look at all of these factors together, they do represent some essential increases that are necessary to maintain programs. We also need to fulfill legal obligations as we continue to meet the needs of all of our students. So as we worked through the FY27 budget, we also identified several areas where reductions could be made. And we do so, and we really prioritize in an effort to not compromise the quality of instruction or student support. So first, we do plan to fund 2 special education teacher positions from different funding sources. One through a separate warrant article, and the other is by utilizing the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund. Please note, though, if the warrant article does not pass, we would likely need to reallocate or reassign existing staff in order to continue meeting the required specialized instruction. Those are our legal obligations to provide those services for students, so we would need to reallocate our existing staff in order to meet those needs. Additionally, funding for a special education teacher via the expendable trust is not sustainable. That is really a 1-year fix, but we only have limited funds in that trust, so that isn't something that we can continue from year to year. Secondly, we did make a targeted reduction in ESOL contracted services. That reflects a decrease in the number of students that require those English as a second language services for next year. And then finally, across all of our departments, we did take a real careful look at all of our discretionary accounts, and we really prioritize the essential items necessary, and we took care to reduce or defer any lower impact requests, and that was in order to help control the overall cost growth, because we did have a number of non-discretionary increases this year. So taken together, these reductions, we really took a strategic approach, looked at what the needs are for our students, and designed the most responsible use of our resources, really keeping in mind our student learning first and minimize student impact as best we could. I'll also note that most of the increase in FY27 is driven by 3 areas. And those are contractual salary adjustments, special education services and transportation, as well as employee benefits. Those 3 areas account for $650,000 of the total increase. All the other budget areas across the board, so if you look at every other account, that reflects a net increase of only 1.2%. So that really means the vast majority of the increase is tied directly to contractual and legally obligated items. I also want to note that when we discuss the budget, it's always important to remember that revenue is an important item in addition to the expenditures. When we're budgeting, we're looking at our expenditures, but revenue also plays in. It's just less visible during this discussion, and we have less control over revenue. I want to briefly update you on a recent change in New Hampshire law, which did expand eligibility for the Education Freedom Accounts, or EFAs. So under this program, state adequacy aid is provided directly to families who choose alternative education options. Prior to this eligibility expansion, there were 6 Seabrook students who qualified under the EFA program, and that represented about just under $26,000 in state adequacy funding that went directly to those families. Following this change, eligibility increased to an estimated 24 students, and that associated redirected funding rose to just over $104,000. So in practical terms, that really does represent a meaningful increase in both eligibility and state aid directed outside of public schools for Seabrook students in New Hampshire. And we always need to account for those type of changes when looking at our overall revenue planning. So now we're going to move into the budget detail section of the PowerPoint. I'll take a closer look at each departmental budget, and I'll try to note any increase or decrease, what's included in each account, and the reason for any variance from last year. I hope this will give a clearer picture of where changes are occurring and how they support our overall goals and our vision for the next fiscal year.
Matt, can I ask you a question? Rita, can I ask Matt a question?
Just let him finish this, just so we don't lose
Yeah,
our spot.
okay, I don't know if it's there, because I don't have the PowerPoint, so go ahead.
Certainly, and Maria, if you need a PowerPoint,
Yeah,
here you go.
thank you. I'm just looking for the impact on the average homeowner with $600,000 home. Now, I don't know if I missed the page or I didn't.
You can keep going, just each part.
Thank you. So the general education budget is $5,086,425. That's an increase of about $180,000 or 2.16%. That's driven primarily by CBA salary increases for our teachers and our educational associates. I will note that those increases are partially offset by reductions in the ESOL contracted services that I referenced earlier, along with some lower projected costs in our repair and maintenance accounts, as well as supplies and equipment. Similarly, the special education budget totals approximately $3.5 million, and that's an increase of about $54,000 or 1.56%. Key drivers include higher out-of-district tuition costs, the addition of one full-time educational associate, as well as salary adjustments for our teachers and educational associates. Offsetting reductions include shifting two of our RBTs, so our registered behavior technicians, into the IDEA grant. We also moved a full-time special education position, which I referenced earlier, to a separate warrant article, and another special education teacher we plan to utilize the expendable trust. Further, we did have some reductions in our professional service costs and lower anticipated legal expenses. So I'll also note that, as always, special education costs are driven by student needs and their individualized education programs, their IEPs. Overall, this section of the budget really reflects targeted investment adjustments tied directly to staffing, services, and required student supports. Student activities is budgeted at $80,715. That reflects an increase of $2,852 or 3.66%. And that change is mainly tied to updated forecasts for supplies, stipends, and student dues. And those accounts support our co-curricular and our enrichment programming. The summer school line is level. That's really just a placeholder, and it's really kept open to maintain flexibility so we can respond to future student need if necessary. There's no planned summer school spending built into this budget currently. Our guidance budget totals approximately $186,000. That's an increase of $7,400 or just over 4%. That change is driven primarily by contractual salary obligations and step increases. The health services budget is $174,000, increasing by roughly $5,400 or 3.17%. Again, this reflects salary adjustments as well as a replenishment of our health office supplies. Both of these areas are staffing-driven accounts that support essential student services. The speech services budget is approximately $237,000, and that with an increase of about $10,200 or 4.5%. That increase is driven primarily by contractual salary adjustments for our speech and language service providers. The other student support line remains at $1. Again, that's a placeholder. It's kept open for potential future need. Our improvement of instruction budget is approximately $154,000 and shows a decrease of $3,000 or just under 2%. That reduction is mainly due to lower projected testing costs, as well as anticipated decreases in our tuition reimbursement expenses. Our educational media budget totals $221,000, increasing by roughly $5,000 or 2.32%. This change is primarily driven by contractual salary increases, with supplies, books, and print media funding held generally level. Overall, those adjustments reflect routine cost shifts with some targeted reductions rather than changes to any core instructional programming. Our technology budget is approximately $363,000, with an increase of $15,800 or 4.55%. These technology accounts are aligned with our district's technology replacement and upgrade plan. The increase is driven primarily by salary and software costs, and is partially offset by some lower projected spending on our workshops, our seminars, information access fees, and some equipment purchases. The support services budget totals $86,600, and that's level funded from the prior year. I will note that this line reflects the school's contributions for shared services. That includes our school resource officer, who is a Seabrook Police Department employee, a language translation support, Section 504 services, as well as a student assistance program. So overall, these areas reflect our planned technology lifecycle management, as well as stable shared student support costs. The Board of Education budget is approximately $74,000. That's an increase of about $12,000, or just under 20%. That change is driven primarily by higher projected legal expenses, along with modest increases to our salary and audit costs. Those increases are expected to be partially offset by lower annual meeting and related expenses. The SAU services budget totals $699,974. That's an increase of $43,877, or 6.7%. And that represents Seabrook's share of the SAU central office budget. I'll note that the SAU model does provide shared leadership and operational services across our member districts. And this allows for economies of scale, coordinated support, and shared personnel. This structure is designed to improve efficiency and control costs while also preserving each district's local identity, as well as each district's decision-making authority. Together, these lines represent governance and shared administration, infrastructure, and supports overall district operations. The school administration budget is approximately $741,000, increasing by about $30,500 or 4.29%. That increase is primarily driven by salary adjustments, as well as some higher workshop and seminar costs, along with added summer administrative support, and that support is necessary for our residency verification process. The buildings budget totals about $970,000, increasing by roughly $31,000 or 3.34%. These accounts align with the district's facilities plan, and it also continues to reflect inflationary pressures that I noted earlier across all of our facilities-related items. That includes insurance, supplies, electricity, salaries, heating fuels, equipment, any labor. When we're looking at this overall, these increases are largely cost-driven and tied to maintaining safe, well-operated school facilities, as well as an effective administrative oversight. The grounds budget is approximately $68,000, and that's an increase of $10,400 or 18.08%. That increase reflects cost escalation in grounds maintenance, as well as supplies. We've also planned for parking lot and sidewalk asphalt repairs. The vehicle expenses budget is $3,200, and that remains level funded from the prior year. Repair and maintenance costs are expected to remain generally stable, so no increase was necessary or built in at this time. But together, those accounts do support routine site upkeep as well as maintenance needs. The transportation budget is approximately $1.39 million. That's an increase of $261,026 or 23.06%. The primary driver is special education transportation. As I've noted previously, that is based on individual student needs for out-of-district placements. The remainder of this budget does reflect the third year of the 5-year contract with First Student, and that covers our daily routes, our athletics, our field trip, and other transportation services. Employee benefits total $4.7 million. That's an increase of roughly $277,000 or 6.26%. That change is driven mainly by health insurance plan elections based on staffing changes. Debt service remains at 0 with no bond payment currently scheduled. But overall, these categories are largely obligation driven, and they do reflect our contractually obligated services and benefit structures rather than any discretionary spending. So we're moving on to the interfund transfer. That line is budgeted at $20,000. That's an increase of $18,000 from prior year. That reflects a planned transfer from the general fund to the food service fund, and that covers any potential operating deficit. So the previous accounts that we just went through, they all fall under the general fund. The food service fund is a separate fund that is separate from the general fund. So if the food service fund runs a deficit because they do receive revenue, then the general fund needs to cover that deficit, and that's where the interfund transfer comes into play. The food service budget as a whole totals approximately $411,000. That's a decrease of about $19,000 or 4.5%. And that reduction reflects a staffing adjustment, reducing one position from 5.5 hours to 3.25 hours per day. It also is based on lower participation levels. At the same time, it must be noted that our food and supply costs have increased with cost inflation. So that really is creating some ongoing pressure within the food service program. But overall, these lines do show the active management of the food service program to align that staffing and financial support with our current participation levels that we're seeing. So that concludes the detailed review of the budget. As you can see, the majority of the changes across the budget are driven by contractual salary and benefit adjustments, as well as student service needs and inflationary pressures. When we're looking at our facilities, our technology and supplies accounts, wherever possible, we did identify offsets and reductions, and we've kept several lines level or reduced based on participation trends, as well as some updated forecasts. But overall, this budget reflects a needs-based approach where we focus on the required services for our students. We focused on maintaining safe and effective operations, and we aligned our resources with our instructional priorities and student support obligations. Finally, I will note that the default budget is $19,040,759. That is $166,400 lower than the proposed operating budget. Under New Hampshire law, the default budget is based on the current year's budget or authorized appropriations, and then it's adjusted, and it's adjusted either up or down based on contractual obligations or any legally mandated items, and then it's reduced by any one-time expenditures, it's reduced by any eliminated positions. And I will note it excludes costs that are not expected to recur in those vacant positions. That calculation does follow a specific statutory formula, so the default budget could be either higher or lower than the proposed budget, but it is typically lower than the proposed budget. But should the proposed operating budget fail at ballot, the school board will be tasked with developing a new budget based on that default number. And that's important to note because when our community members do go to vote in March, they will see our proposed budget and the default budget. Those are the two numbers that they will be seeing. So, thank you.
All right, that opens it up to questions or comments. Hearing none and seeing none. Article 2, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $125,807 for the salary and benefits for a special education teacher to serve the Seabrook School District. Majority vote required. The school board and budget committee recommend this appropriation. Should this article be approved, it is estimated it will constitute a 0.0284 cent per thousand on the tax rate.
Thank you. So this warrant article requests the approval to raise and appropriate $125,807 to fund a special education teacher position. I will note that this is an existing position that is currently funded through federal IDEA grant funding. This article would shift the funding for this role from the grant to the local budget. I'll also note that that grant funding is already earmarked for the RBT positions, so we do not have available funding should this fail. This teacher position does provide required specialized instruction as well as services for students with disabilities, and those are defined by those students' individualized education programs or their IEPs. The district is legally obligated under state and federal law to provide these services based on student need. So if this warrant article does not pass, we can't just ignore those needs. We would likely need to reallocate and reassign existing staff members in order to continue to meet those required specialized instruction and service obligations. Approval for this article is essential, and it does provide stable local funding for required special education services. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you. Laura Lukowski, Seabrook Elementary School teacher and Seabrook resident. I'll be reiterating a little bit of what Matt just said, but I'd like to address this warrant article so that the people listening will understand how important it is. We have a large population of students, around 20%, who need special education services here in our schools. These services are not optional. These students have individualized education plans, IEPs for short, and we are required by law to provide the services within those plans. As I said, I'm a teacher and a resident of Seabrook. I also have 2 children that came through Seabrook schools, so I look at this warrant article from a few different perspectives. As a member of this community, I believe it's our responsibility to take care of the children in our community, all of the children. If this position is not filled, we will not be able to properly service the children with individualized education plans because, simply stated, there will not be enough bodies to provide the services that these children need and deserve based on their IEP. Now you might think, well, my children don't receive special ed services, so it doesn't matter to me, but it will have an impact on the children in regular ed too, which I'll explain a little further. Inevitably, this warrant article is important for all of our students. With my teacher hat, I can tell you about the trickle-down effect that will happen if this warrant article does not pass, and we are left without this much-needed position. Because we are required to provide these services, we need to have a teacher in this position, period. If we don't have the money from the warrant article to hire somebody, a current teacher will have to take on this role. Now that might sound like a good idea because it will save town money, but here is where the trickle-down effect comes in. If one of our current teachers is put in this position, this is going to take away a classroom teacher, which will affect class size, or it's going to take away an interventionist and lower the amount of students that can receive intervention services. An intervention is a way to boost up students who are low achieving with the hope that they do not end up needing special ed services. So that seems a bit counterproductive. Putting aside how this may affect regular ed students, there's another piece. Being a special education teacher is a very specialized position and includes knowledge and the ability to organize and write individual education plans for children and provide those support services needed. Although there are some teachers on staff with that certification, it may not be where their passion lies. If this warrant article is voted down and a current staff member is required to fill this position, it's possible that we could be putting someone into this very specialized position who's more comfortable in the regular ed setting or who has little or no experience, as opposed to being able to fill this position with somebody highly qualified and experienced in this area if the warrant article passes. In closing, I'll jump back to my resident hat. I understand that this will raise taxes, mine will go up as well, but really it's a minimal amount. The benefits that would come from what people pay for coffee some days will be so important to our children, whether they are in regular ed or special ed. Both of my children are now voting age and they will be voting for this warrant article. They know what it's like to walk through these halls and sit in these desks. They feel they received a good education here and they want to be sure that continues for the students in the future. They know the importance of helping all the children in this community, and they understand the repercussions if this does not pass. I hope you will join me and my family in voting yes on this very important warrant article. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none and seeing none. Article 3, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $192,100 for the replacement of 2 boilers in the Seabrook Middle School. This project is part of the facility plan adopted by the school board. The school board and the budget committee recommend this appropriation, majority vote required. Should this article be approved, it is estimated it will constitute a 0.0434 cent per thousand of the tax rate.
Thank you. So this warrant article requests the approval to raise and appropriate $192,100 in order to replace 2 middle school boilers. This project is included in the district's 5-year capital improvement plan, the CIP. The boilers are reaching they're nearing the end of life. We have seen increased repair and maintenance costs in order to keep them operational. I'll also note that 2 other boilers of the same age and model failed unexpectedly within the past year, which really highlights the risk of waiting and the importance of this planned replacement. We nearly have depleted our building maintenance expendable trust in order to fund those replacement boilers. Approval of this article does allow the district to complete this work on a scheduled basis. It helps to avoid emergency failures, it helps to avoid service disruptions, and potentially avoid higher unplanned repair costs. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none and seeing none. Article 4, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $54,000 to fund the removal of 2 obsolete oil tanks. The school board and budget committee recommend this appropriation, majority vote required. Should this article be approved, it is estimated it will constitute a 0.0122 cent per thousand of the tax rate.
So this warrant article requests approval to raise and appropriate $54,000 to remove 2 obsolete oil tanks. This project is also included in the district's 5-year capital improvement plan, the CIP. I'll note that a recent inspection did identify a failure in the monitoring alarm system that monitors these tanks and is required for the tanks to remain in service. So we did have to temporarily take them out of service. I'll also note that there is a 3-year window before the next required state inspection. So it's important that we complete this removal now, as it's the most practical as well as cost-effective approach. Doing so will avoid future compliance issues. It also reduces the risk of additional costs tied to maintaining unused and aging equipment. Approval of this article does allow the district to address this issue proactively and through our planned capital improvements work rather than another emergency action or deferred maintenance. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none and seeing none. Article 5, to see if the school district will vote to authorize the school board to enter into a 5-year lease agreement in the amount of $60,000 for the purpose of replacing the 2010 pickup truck and plow and raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 for the first year's payments. This lease agreement contains an escape clause and a $1 buyout. Majority vote required. The school board and the budget committee recommend this appropriation. And should this article be approved, it is estimated it will constitute a 0.0034 cent per thousand of the tax rate.
So this warrant article requests approval to raise and appropriate $15,000 for the replacement of the school's pickup truck. This vehicle does support daily facilities operations. That includes trash transportation, grounds maintenance, and athletic field upkeep. The current truck is a 2010 model, so it really is reaching the end of its useful life. It now requires significant annual repairs in order to remain in service. This article represents the first year of a planned 5-year lease arrangement for the replacement vehicle. I will note that this is a municipal lease, so this is not your typical commercial lease where you return the car. We will own it at the end of the 5-year financing period. Approval of this article does allow the district to maintain reliable operational equipment, again through planned replacement schedules rather than continued high repair costs and potential service interruptions. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none and seeing none. Article 6, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be added to the existing building maintenance expandable trust fund, with up to $50,000 to be funded from the June 30th, 2026 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2026. No additional amount to be raised from taxation. Majority vote required. The school board and budget committee recommend this appropriation.
Thank you. So this warrant article requests approval to contribute $50,000 to the Building Maintenance Expendable Trust using unreserved fund balance. The purpose of this article is to help rebuild the trust after those 2 aforementioned withdrawals to cover the unexpected boiler replacement costs. Restoring this balance will help ensure that the district has a dedicated reserve available for any future unplanned building repairs. Importantly, this funding would not come from any additional taxation. It would be from the year-end balance. So I'll also note that if there's not sufficient available balance at end year, this transfer would not occur. Approval of this article does strengthen the district's ability to manage these unexpected costs. It helps us to plan in a more financially responsible manner. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none and seeing none. Article 7, to Yeah, Article 7, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be added to the existing special education expandable trust fund. Majority vote required. The school board and budget committee recommend this appropriation. Should this article be approved, it is estimated it will constitute a 0.0113 cent per thousand of the tax rate.
So this warrant article requests approval to raise and appropriate $50,000 to add to the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund. This trust was established to help safeguard the school district against any unanticipated special education costs. As we know, those can arise at any point during the school year. That's based on student needs and legally required services. Because the special education accounts and the associated expenses can really change quickly. This could be due to new student enrollments, program changes, out-of-district placements. It's really important to maintain a healthy trust balance. That helps us as a district respond without disrupting other parts of the operating budget. Earlier this evening, we had a school board meeting where I reported out on this current school year's expenditure report, and we are projecting to be over budget due to special education costs. So we've had to, cut out any or freeze any discretionary spending, and we'll likely be making a withdrawal from this trust at the end of the fiscal year. So approval of this article does strengthen the district's financial standing for these unexpected special education obligations, and it does help manage our risk in a more stable and predictable manner. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
So I'm not sure if this question's appropriate at this time, but I'm gonna, if not, just stop me. So I was just wondering, can you identify where in the budget the district had accounted for the financial obligations described in the corrective action letter? Because that would be special ed. So in other words, if we went over budget on special education and it was due to those costs, can you tell us approximately how much that would have cost and what the breakdown is?
I'm assuming you're referring to compensatory services.
Yep.
I don't have that figure on me, but you could certainly, if you want to email me, I can certainly, with some more details of what you're looking for, I'd be happy to look into that.
Okay, and then because it did indicate that there was going to be extra cost for that, so I'm just wondering if that was discussed during the budget review meeting that you guys had. You had budget review meetings.
Our budget review meeting is for FY27. I think you're referring to current expenditures for FY26.
But these corrective actions go over into 27.
I'm assuming you're referring to compensatory services. There's some element of cost to that, and I'd be happy to pull that for you if you want to shoot me an email.
Okay.
I can gather that data for you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you also CC the board?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
I would like to just say something before you read the last article. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know it's not a ton of people here, but I just want to thank you. And as we all know, testing for our children of Seabrook is improving, and our goal is to keep raising the bar. We have been in a default budget for the last few years, and we really need to stand together to get the budget passed this year. Our kids need us, and we need to all work together to accomplish this. I feel like we are moving in the right direction. I know we are in trying times and money can be tight, but we need to move forward in a positive outlook. We will do everything we can to reduce the burden on local property taxes, but we need all your help to pass this budget so that we can help our children continue to grow and be the adults that we are now. They are in trying times. This world is crazy right now. And I just feel like any support that we can support our children and the budget to help them grow and grow into great adults. I just want to thank you for coming out tonight. and supporting our children, and we'll see you at the polls.
All right. Any further questions or comments on Article 7?
So I wanted to share too that we have seen some growth in our classrooms with our students. However, where we're at in math and language arts is rough, and our rankings are very low. And yes, we're trying. I don't think money's the issue with that, but that's just my opinion. I think that we really need to look, and I wanted to, share a point of, I'm not going to tell you how to vote because you all know what you can afford in your household and what you can do to approve or not approve the budget. I was looking earlier through this, wondering on an average $600,000 home, what that 4.75% increase would look like, but I couldn't find it in here. And I don't know if anybody has it, because sometimes if people say, hey, I can afford an extra $300 every 6 months on my tax bill for that they do. But I think, what is that? Do you have that amount now?
The tax impact on $650,000.
Yeah, just say an average, yeah.
I could certainly calculate for that for you. I could certainly calculate that for you, but I'll also note that that's not a $4 per $1,000 increase. That's the total tax impact. So you'd have to look at the differential from this year to next year, which was, as you know, there's a 4.75% total budget increase. But if that's something you'd like me to calculate, I'd be happy to, Maria.
If it's hard, I don't task.
I can't do it in my head right at the moment, but I can certainly do that.
You can email it, all right? So I guess just to finish up to say that there's no better investment than the investment in education of kids. So just give us a chance and see how it goes. So we'll be our budget.
Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none and seeing none. Article 8, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $26,092 to provide child benefit services in accordance with RSA 18949 for students who are residents of the Seabrook School District and attend Sacred Heart School located in Hampton, New Hampshire. Citizen petitioned by 25 or more registered voters of the town of Seabrook. Majority vote required. The school board and the budget committee recommend this appropriation. Should this article be approved, it is estimated it will constitute a 0.0059 cent per thousand of the tax rate.
Thank you. So this article is a citizen's petition warrant article requesting approval to raise and appropriate $26,092 for the Sacred Heart School. That was submitted by the school, which is located in Hampton. If approved, the funds would be used to purchase technology, supplies, and books for 22 Seabrook resident students who attend Sacred Heart. As a citizen's petition article, this item was placed on the warrant through the petition process rather than the school board action. And to answer Maria's question, for $650,000 house, that the operating budget would be $2,821.
What is it? I didn't hear it.
$2,821 for
$2,800
$21.
for the
For
increase.
just the Article 1,
For the
budget.
for the.
Just the operating budget.
That's the total cost. That's the total
That's the
cost.
total cost, not the increase, as I said earlier.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say that.
You'd have to look at the tax rate impact from last year and compare it to this year. Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Everybody is still tired out from last year. I love to see it. All right. So, session 2, balloting, meet at the Seabrook Recreation Center, Seabrook, New Hampshire, on Tuesday, the 10th of March, 2026, at 7 a.m. in the morning to elect by official ballot officers of the school district and to vote by official ballot on warrant articles for the first session. This meeting is in recess. March 10th, 11th. March 10th.